Hello everyone and welcome back to STW Sport, and today I'm going to be going over every Premier League club's one player who I believe will be the one to watch next season. Of course, not all the transfer windows over yet, so this is quite hard to do at the moment, but out of the players who are currently at that club, I've managed to pick out one from each team, and someone I believe could surprise a few people next season maybe and be a bit more of a standout. But yep, I'll get straight on with it. I've also included a manager in this, by the way, as well, so do stay tuned at the end. And I'm going to Arsenal, William Saliba. William Saliba was on loan last season at St Etienne, where he made 12 appearances and scored no goals, but kept 4 clean sheets in his 12 appearances. Saliba's only a 19-year-old centre-back. He's arrived at Arsenal with a lot of hype, and whether he'll be able to live up to that is yet to be seen. Arsenal, of course, defensively certainly need improving, so if Saliba does work out at the club, it could be a big blessing in disguise for the Gunners. Interesting to see how Saliba does do in English football, but 19 years of age, will he break into the team under Mikel Arteta? I'm not too sure, but we'll see the best of him, especially as an Arsenal fan. But yeah, only 19 years old as well, so still a lot of time ahead of him anyway. Aston Villa, John McGinn. Yeah, John McGinn last season did have his injury problems, but he made 28 Premier League appearances, scored 3 goals and got 3 assists. McGinn had a pretty decent season when he played. He looked a bit rusty after he came back after lockdown, to be honest with you. Wasn't his best run of form, but he was easing his way back into fitness, of course. But before lockdown, though, he was very good, and he was a big blow when he got injured for Aston Villa, unfortunately. But yeah, Villa certainly had their injury problems. McGinn might have been the biggest problem they had there. But yeah, overall, I think McGinn next season, if he stays fully fit, will definitely kick on and should have a good season. But yeah, interesting to see how he does do as well. Brighton, Adam Lallana. Yeah, not really Lallana's not really a player with potential necessarily now. Lallana is in his 30s, but I still think Lallana's got something to offer to this Brighton team. It's quite an ambitious signing from Brighton. I mean, Lallana hasn't really been playing regularly now since about 2017. Of course, he got that bad injury in 2017, ruled him out of the entire 17-18 campaign. But overall, though, I do think Lallana is a very good addition for Brighton. And yeah, I think he'll suit Graham Potter's style of play. I think we can see a good signing in Adam Lallana, and interesting to see how he really does if he does play every game. I'm sure he will play every game if he stays fully fit again, but we'll have to wait and see. But I'm interested to see how Lallana does do at Brighton. He's certainly a player to watch, player I'm interested in watching anyway. Burnley, Josh Brownhill. I pretty struggled a lot with Burnley because I don't really know who their player to watch is. I could go for Dwight McNeil, but we already know Dwight McNeil's a good player and he had a pretty good season last year. But, I mean, I'm going to go with the youngster Josh Brownhill. I mean, he's got 10 appearances for Burnley since signing in January and not scored. But he's a player who, if given more game time by Sean Dyche next season, could thrive maybe. Interesting to see, but I think he's the one player I do look at and I don't really know a lot about. So I think he's definitely a shout here, Brownhill. Chelsea, Christian Pulisic. Of course, I could go for the obvious Timo Werner or Hakim Ziyech, but I'm going to go with Pulisic because I think Pulisic could really take it up a level next season. I really think Pulisic, after lockdown, he looked brilliant. A couple of performances where he really stood out, particularly in the home win over Manchester City. But Pulisic got 9 goals and 4 assists in the 2019-20 season, so a good season for him overall, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, he needs to maybe kick on a bit more next season, but he wasn't getting in the team regularly at the start of the year. But overall, though, I think Pulisic is a good player, and I really am expecting big things from him next season. If he can continue his form like he had after the lockdown, then I really think we could see a great player next season. So yeah, promising signs for Chelsea there. Crystal Palace, Max Meyer. Yeah, controversial one here. Max Meyer's been pretty poor at Palace, to be honest with you. Last season, 0 goals and 0 assists in 17 matches. So Meyer certainly hasn't hit it off in a Palace shirt since joining in 2018. And Palace fans will be hoping that changes. But if it does change, to be fair, they do have a player on their hands. We know Max Meyer can be a good player. He just hasn't been used well at Palace. I don't know whether that's Roy Hodgson or what, but he hasn't lived up to that potential just yet. But I think that if given more game time and more of a chance, we could see a player next season. But it's a real shame, because I do think Max Meyer's a good player for Palace, but he's been proper wasted the last couple of years. But he hasn't done it when his chances have been on the field either, as I said. 0 goals, 0 assists in 17 games. Certainly not good enough for a player who was once touted for big things. Everton, Alex Iwobi. Yeah, another controversial one here. I'm glad Everton fans, if you're watching this, know how frustrating Iwobi's end product now is. Iwobi's that player who, he looks promising till he gets to the final third, and then he really doesn't know what to do with the ball. It's very, it's really frustrating to watch. Iwobi made 25 appearances in the 1920 season in the Premier League, 1 goal, 0 assists. That's really poor for a winger, to be honest with you. Iwobi needs to be hitting better numbers than that. Even at Arsenal, he was getting better numbers at Arsenal. At Everton, he moved to Everton to take on a new challenge, and to be honest, he hasn't really lived up to it yet, unfortunately. I mean, it's just not clicking for the Nigerian winger at the moment. He's not even been getting in the team regularly under Ancelotti. Big season ahead for him next year. If he plays regularly, maybe he'll be able to kick on and take it to another level. But yeah, I went with Iwobi. I thought, he is a player with a point to prove. But whether he does, I'm not too sure. It's not been a good move for him just yet. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Fulham, Alexander Mitrovic. Yeah, going quite obvious here, really. Mitrovic just seems an easy choice, but I'm interested to see if Mitrovic can hit plenty of Premier League goals. Mitrovic is a good striker. He's proven that before, maybe not in the Premier League, but last season he did win the Champions League Golden Boot, Golden Boot, scoring 26 goals in 41 matches. So Mitrovic has got it in him to score a lot of goals, to be fair. He is a good player, but whether he can, I'm not too sure, do it in the Premier League. He was a part of that Fulham team who were relegated a couple of seasons ago. Interesting to see how Mitrovic does do now he is back in the Prem, but he's an obvious one, but I think Mitrovic could go on and do really well if Fulham have a good season anyway. But yeah, he's a good striker for the Premier League, for Fulham anyway. So yeah, interesting to see how he does. Leeds United, Stuart Dallas. I really struggle to pick a player from Leeds, to be honest. We kind of all know the Leeds squad. I mean, Pablo Hernandez is 35 years old, so I didn't really want to choose him. Stuart Dallas has been a Leeds player since 2015 now. Last season he got 5 goals and 3 assists. Dallas is a decent player. I think he could do well in the Premier League, to be fair. I think Leeds in general will do well in the Premier League. I've got really high hopes for Leeds next season, but then again, I said the same about Fulham a couple of years ago, and look how that turned out. But yeah, I do have high hopes for him, and I think high hopes for Leeds, and I think Dallas could be one of them players who surprises people and does really well in the Premier League. Leicester City, Yuri Tillemans. Yeah, no doubt, Yuri Tillemans is a very talented player, to be fair to him. Big fan of Tillemans, but last season, especially second half of the season, his form really dipped. Tillemans ended the season with just 3 goals and 6 assists in 37 games. For a player of Tillemans' standard, that really doesn't seem good enough. I like Tillemans, I do think he's a good player, but his form last season really dipped at Leicester, and he'll be open for a better season next season, especially better stats. Interesting to see again how Tillemans does do, but yeah, the second half of last season certainly faded off, and of course as Leicester did bottle the Champions League places. But yeah, Tillemans is a player I think I'm expecting a lot more from next season. I think he could be very good. Liverpool, Naby Keita. Yeah, this is the year now for Naby Keita, really. I think if Naby Keita doesn't do well this season, it's his 3rd season at the club, he probably will leave in the summer. Keita is a good player, there's no doubt about that. I expected more from him at Liverpool. Injury problems have got in his way, but overall, Keita's time at Liverpool hasn't been great yet. We're certainly expecting better from him. And he did, after lockdown, he was probably Liverpool's best player, but he had a point to prove then. He needs to keep it up, and I think he can have a very good season next season. Providing he avoids injury, I think we could see a different Keita. I mean, 18 matches last season, 2 goals, 3 assists. Not the best, really, but I do think we're starting to see slow improvements from Keita after lockdown, so Keita's certainly got the promise there. We know he's a good player, but whether he can hit it off in the Premier League next season for Liverpool is yet to be seen, of course. But yeah, I'm expecting good things from Keita, though. Manchester City, Phil Foden. Yeah, this one goes without saying, really. We all know how talented Phil Foden already is. It's a massive shame Phil Foden started his career in a Man City midfield with the likes of De Bruyne, Silva, and Bernardo Silva and David Silva. I think Phil Foden walks into most Premier League teams, to be fair, a very good player. And I think next season, now if he starts games regularly, we could really see a very good Phil Foden. Last season, 5 goals, 2 assists in 23 games, bearing in mind a lot of them were off the bench as well. I do certainly think he's a very talented player, Foden. And yeah, I think next season really could be the one he kicks on, and he has a fantastic season. Really like the look of Foden, so very obvious one there. Manchester United, Mason Greenwood. Yeah, speaking of obvious, now I've gone with Mason Greenwood. Yeah, Mason Greenwood is one of the most talented players I've probably ever seen. Again, it's a big season ahead for Man United next year. They're in the Champions League, of course. They haven't won a trophy this year anyway, but I do think Greenwood's one of the players who has been a real bright spot for United this season. I mean, 10 goals in 31 matches, and again, a lot of them have been off the bench. He's 18 years old. I do really think Greenwood could be something special if he keeps going the way he is. He shows a lot of maturity as well for an 18-year-old on the pitch as well. So, yeah, I do think Greenwood is certainly one. Probably, for me, the most talented youngster in the Premier League right now. Very good player, Greenwood. Newcastle United, Miguel Almiron. Yeah, Miguel Almiron's one of them players who end product is so frustrating. Almiron and St Maximin, if they had goals and assists to them, Newcastle would be very good. Newcastle would have a very good attack. Joe Linton's in it, but other than that, Almiron and St Maximin could be amazing attack. But you know, to be fair to Almiron, that I do think he's a good player and he has done well at Newcastle. He's just lacking the goals. Last season, 4 goals and 2 assists in 36 games. It's not enough really. But yeah, I do think that Almiron is a good player. And I am expecting him next season to maybe up them stats a little bit more. But yeah, no doubt though Almiron is talented. He just needs to improve that end product for goals and assists, and he will be a very good player. So next season that could happen for him. Sheffield United, Jack O'Connell. Again, I struggled a bit with Sheffield United really. They've had some good players this season, but Jack O'Connell's had a very good season. He's part of a defence that kept 13 clean sheets. I think O'Connell, though, is an underrated centre-back. I don't think he gets enough recognition, personally. So, yeah, next season, I think he kicks on a little bit more. He could be even better. I mean, I don't think O'Connell's necessarily someone who stands out, but he is a decent defender and doesn't really get a lot of recognition. But Sheffield United are more of a collective unit. Again, I really struggled with Sheffield United to choose a player. They've got some talent. They've got some good players, but someone who's one to watch, I really did struggle. But yeah, O'Connell's the one I'm picking, though. I do think he's a good centre-back and a little bit underrated. Even though this isn't an underrated list by any means, still, it's good to see that it's you know, interesting how O'Connell does do next season, when Sheffield United could struggle a little bit more. Southampton, Che Adams. Yeah, Che Adams is a player who made a very slow start to life at Southampton. He ended the season quite well, of course, got that breakthrough goal against Manchester City in that 1-0 win at St Mary's, a brilliant goal as well. 4 goals and 2 assists in 30 matches. Good record, not a good record by any means, but you know, he had a good end to the season though, and that's what I do think Che Adams can kick on next season. Of course, Danny Ings scored plenty of goals this season, which goes without saying. But I do think Che Adams could do well next season though. I really think it's time for him to kick on now. He had a good end to the season, so yeah, I do think we could see a much better player. And if he has a good season as well as Danny Ings, Southampton could have a very good season themselves, so interesting there. Tottenham Hotspur, Giovanni Lo Celso. Yeah, again, Tottenham were a struggle. I mean, I could have gone with Tanguy and Ndombele, but I don't know if he's going to be there, and I don't really know if he wants to be there. Lo Celso is a sort of player who isn't bad. I mean, he got no goals and 2 assists in 28 games last season. He shows a lot of flair, Lo Celso. He does have a bit to him, but yeah, I'm still not really overly convinced by him in the Premier League yet. But next season, I think if he starts games regularly, we could see a much better Lo Celso. And I'm kind of expecting that, to be honest with you. I'm kind of expecting to see a Lo Celso who he provides more goals and assists for Spurs next season. It's just if he gets the game time, but I think he's the one Spurs player who could be one to watch next season. West Bromwich Albion, Mateus Pereira. Yeah, Mateus Pereira had a very good season in the Championship last season. 8 goals, 16 assists in 42 games. I don't care what level you're playing at. 16 assists is a very good record. So yeah, so Pereira, again, there's promise there for him, Pereira. So I think West Brom are going to be a different West Brom from when they were last in the Premier League. They're going to be a lot more entertaining, a lot more open. So I think Pereira could be a big part of that, to be honest with you. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he plays and how he copes with the Premier League, and he's certainly my player to watch. It's quite an obvious one, really. You've watched West Brom, most of you probably would pick out Pereira for that. West Ham United, Pablo Fornals. Yeah, Pablo Fornals did not hit it off in his first season at West Ham. 2 goals and 5 assists in 36 matches. Really disappointing return for Fornals. I expected big things from him this season, but we just haven't had it. That's the end of the story. It hasn't clicked for him. West Ham had a poor season themselves, finishing 16th. But I do think Fornals is talented though, and if he gets a good start to next season, he could be the player to watch. So yeah, I'm going to go with Fornals. I think that he's the one player at West Ham will look at and go, if he has a good start to the season, he really could kick on. So yeah, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Daniel Podence. Yeah, Daniel Podence only signed for Wolves in January from Olympiacos, and so far just the 1 goal in 9 games. That was a 3-0 win against Everton. Podence has got talent to him. He's a very small player. He gets around the pitch quickly. I do think Podence is a decent player, so interested to see how he does next season. But I do think if he starts games, which I'm not sure he will, we could see much more of a better Podence as well. But he's certainly my dark horse in the Wolves team to really improve. I mean, look at Adama Traore last season. I mean, everyone was saying he'd like to leave the club maybe after a poor first season, but he kicked on. So I think Podence could do so as well. Not saying Podence has been a flop so far. He's not really played enough games, but yeah, so far I do think though next season we'll see a lot more from him though, and he's certainly one to watch for Wolves. So yeah, that's all the players to watch from each 20 Premier League club. Manager Scott Parker. Yeah, I think Scott Parker's a manager who this season kind of feels a bit like make or break for him. I mean, Fulham of course got relegated in the 2018-19 season, and it kind of felt like Parker came in at the end of the season. Fulham would win the championship quite comfortably, and that didn't happen. Fulham had to come up through the playoffs, but I do think Parker, though, as a manager, he's done a good job this season. He's came to that Fulham team who were badly relegated. He's got his own system going. I do think he's a good manager, Parker. I think that he's good in the Championship, whether he does it in the Premier League. But I do think, though, Fulham could go on to some good ththings. And it feels weird seeing Scott Parker as a manager, man. Like, I remember seeing him play regularly just a few years ago. It feels weird. But, yeah, Parker's, I think he's a good manager for the Championship. Can he do it in the Premier League, though? That's the big question. I think Fulham might do well next season, but then again, I said that last time they were in the Premier League, so hopefully this time I might be right. But yeah, so yeah, that's my list overall. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with more football content. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.